Above and beyond borders.
Beyond borders.
It's Borderline
with Ireti Bakare-Yusuf.
Welcome back to Borderlines, the only show that takes you beyond borders. It's been, so far, an incredible 1 hour, and it's about to get even better. Yes, I told you we had a brilliant show ready for you today. Today, right, again, like my previous guests, there are people whom I have always wanted to be in conversation with. Indeed, people who will continue to teach, educate, and enlighten the world to the truth, the accuracy of what's going on between Israel and Palestine, and of course, by extension, the genocide that we're seeing in Gaza today. And don't you dare write me and tell me it's not a genocide. That is no longer an argument, and I won't accept it. Right, my next guest is, yes, she's a Palestinian. She's also a writer, a best-selling writer. Oh, she was at the Oxford debate, and if you haven't seen it, then really you need to go after this show. Her name is Susan Abulhawa, and it is an absolute pleasure to have you, Susan.
Oh, the pleasure is mine, my sister. Thank you for having me.
Oh, no, I trust you. Trust me, the pleasure, the real pleasure is ours. Let me start with this. As I mentioned, your debate at the Oxford Debate Club, or whatever it is they call it. You said something which always stuck with me. You called it the nuisance of the Palestinians. Unpack that for me. And why is it that the Israelis view the Palestinian existence, continued existence, history indeed, as a nuisance?
They've said it. I'm not. This isn't a matter of opinion. The very early designs of Zionism were quite explicit. It was to take the territory and dispossess the indigenous population. Zionism, at its core, is a settler colonial white supremacist movement. A Jewish supremacist, but in this case, kind of the flip side of white supremacy, I suppose, because it was largely a European movement to colonize someone else's homeland. And after 1948, and to this day, within Israeli society, there is a kind of public lament in all circles, in media circles, in academic circles, in political circles, that, bemoaning the fact that Ben-Gurion, quote unquote, did not finish the job. And what they mean by that is that he didn't finish the job of expelling or killing all of us. And over the years, especially in the last 20 to 30 years, there have been a lot of discourse in Israeli society bemoaning our birth rate, right? That we have too many babies. Our babies are a threat to them because they fear there are too many of us, and so they have always been, and they've always talked about. This is like, in their own words, they have repeatedly over the past 7 decades tried to, quote, create conditions on the ground that would promote voluntary migration, unquote. That's one of Yitzhak Rabin's quotes, but there have been many other similar statements. And so they have sought to basically make our lives such a living hell that we would voluntarily migrate. But once again, that wasn't, I think colonizers always underestimate the agency of indigenous people, and more than that, they underestimate a people's attachment to their ancestors and their roots and their soil. And this was particularly acute in Gaza, which had been the most populated place on earth, actually. And they talked, for the past 20 years, they have tried to implement policies that would totally denigrate life.
Mm.
They, as you may know, Gaza was under an extraordinary siege,
Mm.
whereby Israel basically controlled everything that came in and out. At one point, there were declassified documents that showed how Israel was calculating the calories that went in, and it was with the explicit purpose of making Palestinians teeter on the edge of starvation. Basically, and what's his name? Dov Weisglass at the time joked that they were putting Palestinians on a diet. They did not want an overt famine that would attract international condemnation, but they wanted to basically affect the nutrition, the development of children, all of these things. I mean, they said all this is, and again, I'm not making this up. This is all declassified Zionist documents. But again, we proved resourceful. Palestinians actually, they continued, we found ways that they started digging tunnels under the Egyptian border, bringing in actually like Kentucky Fried Chicken, stuff like they were bringing in all the things that Israel banned. Like Israel banned pasta, they banned chocolate, they banned pencils, they banned notebooks. Wedding dresses. I mean, absurd things. Simple things of living were banned, and so they, and then they started attacking the tunnels and flooding the tunnels, and so. But at every turn, Palestinians proved resilient in ways that Israel could not counter, and just before Israel began this genocide, Gaza, against all odds, like miraculously almost, was still living. Right, people were still going to university. They actually built more, more universities. They were opening businesses and cafes along the shore, and it was a difficult life, right? Because people could not leave the enclave, or they couldn't, it was a population under siege, but nonetheless, some people, some of the native people in Gaza went and were able to study abroad, and they all came back, and they brought new technologies, they brought new medicines and new skills, and did the best with what they had. And this was maddening to Israel. It was, anybody who says this is because of October 7th is either stupid or is just overtly lying. I mean, this was always meant to be. I mean, they've talked about it for years, taking Gaza, basically.
Indeed. You're Palestinian. I think it would be good for the listeners to actually hear, if you could tell us just, a minute or two about your family and indeed what happened to them and what they've been through.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to talk about myself, honestly, in the midst of
I'm
a
being
genocide.
asked to tell you to what? Keep your screen stable or close. I don't know. They're asking me something. Yeah, it's in the Zoom chat. I understand. Yeah.
I mean, my family were from a village in the Jerusalem district. It's called Atur. It's right on the Mount of Olives. My family was expelled in 1967. And, like every Palestinian family, we were shattered. We were scattered all over the world. And, the family structure that I think Westerners don't really understand, but the kind of extended family clan and that is prevalent throughout the region, throughout African societies, throughout Asian societies, and even South American societies, is sort of not really present in the West, but this family structure is really what held our nation together, and it was in large part dismantled with when everybody was pushed to flee and seek their bread wherever they could.
Let's talk about bearing witness in Gaza. You've been inside Gaza twice during this genocide. You've witnessed the destruction, the grief, and the resilience of the people firsthand. Most of the world only see Gaza through screens or filtered reports. Can you share with us what you've seen and what struck you, the things that struck you the most? I remember you talking during the Oxford debate about a young boy.
Yeah.
Okay. I believe we have to go on a quick break. If you just hold on, because they need to adjust your frame. 1 second. Just 30-second break. We're back.
Above and beyond borders.
Beyond borders.
It's Borderline
with Ireti Bakare-Yusuf.
From Washington to Beijing, Moscow to Abuja, London to Kigali, the world is shifting fast. Elections are shaping destinies, wars are redrawing borders, economies are rising and falling, and global alliances are being tested like never before. But what does it all mean for you?
With a new administration and a new president in the White House trying to put an end to the war.
I didn't know the historical context, what the state of Israel means for them.
Join the fearless Ireti Bakare-Yusuf on Borderlines every Friday at 4 p.m. on Nigeria Info 99.3. As she dissects the biggest global events and their impact on world peace.
Those who are not familiar with Israel or the war itself. Right, we're back. Sorry, we had to take the 30-second break because those of you watching on YouTube will start complaining. Right, so we're back. Susan, you were telling us about what you had witnessed in Gaza.
It's I've said this before. Sometimes I don't really have the words to adequately convey the level of torment and wholesale denigration that Israel has inflicted on Palestinians. It is truly something that in many ways defies language. It is something that I have never dispelled from my mind or from my dreams. I am haunted to this day by some of the smells, some of the things that I witnessed. It isn't just the explicit kind of spectacular violence, this unfathomable violence that we all see, and I certainly did see that. For the first time in my life, seeing what the insides of somebody's gut looks like, or just limbs dangling off of bodies, and we've all seen that through video. But there's something else that is far more sinister, far more encompassing, and it is this just wholesale denigration of a society that had been high functioning before. Suddenly, people who were planning weddings, who were working on their doctoral thesis or their master's thesis, or were ready to graduate, or working on a new art piece, whatever, people who had their lives, people who were just about to have a baby, who were thinking about completely different things, all of a sudden were thrust into this world of just filth, debris, pollution, and lack of every sort, into tents that are into darkness also, like just the lack of electricity, the lack of light, the insects everywhere, the inability to provide for your children. It's just the inability to bathe, you know. There's this, and then in sites that were previously bombed, the civil defense does not have heavy machinery to get people out. I mean, I think you've all seen the videos of them sort of using their hands, but all you really see in those videos are the ones that they are able to pull out. But there's a far greater population who are under the rubble and die slowly and horrifically because nobody can get to them. And there's there's thousands of people who have perished in that way. People who are being basically buried alive. I mean, a lot of times the bodies that are pulled out from under the rubble, you can see, especially with children, their lips are blue. And that means that they basically suffocated. They were buried alive and they died by suffocation. And if you can imagine, that is a probably one of the most horrific ways to die, because you die very slowly, and it takes, 10 to 20 minutes to actually die of that kind of suffocation. So your last moments on this earth are utter terror and agony. And to imagine that has happened to so many children, and even just anybody, not just children, is just breathtakingly violent and horrific. And the thing with Gaza is that it is such a small place. There's nowhere to run. There's nowhere to hide. The feeling of insecurity everywhere you go is palpable. Even, anywhere you go, if you're walking or if you manage to get a ride, if there's any cars that have fuel, there's this constant feeling that, okay, well, I could get bombed. Like, and everybody feels that way, and you just sort of, you surrender to that feeling, but you never really do, right? It gets embedded in you, and that was true for me. Just being there a couple of months. Imagine people who have been doing this for 2 years. People are completely dismantled. They are traumatized beyond anything I could possibly comprehend. I think there are some recent videos. There's one in my mind that of this baby crying in a way that I've never ever heard an infant cry. I mean, it was just haunting. And there was another video of this also an infant who was clearly wounded, but was not crying. And I've also never seen an infant so terrified that they just don't cry, knowing there's clearly in physical pain. So there's been so many things, so many thresholds of human agony that have been traversed, that Israel has pushed us beyond, that I don't think human beings should have to go to be
Not
honest.
at all. No human should have to go through it. But here we are, we continue to see it happening to Palestinians, to Gazans, day after day. Indeed, 76 years, unrelenting, unstopping. I think the last time I counted the number of massacres were in like 20 something. And people still continue to go back, harp on about October 7th. Well, here we are, 2 years almost after October 7th, and over 400. When we think of when we think of malnutrition, we hear it. It's a word. It doesn't even sound as ugly and as tragic and as sort of insidious as it is. But when you hear a doctor explain what happens with malnutrition, that's when you truly understand how over 400 Gazans could have the world allowed them, and I have to say allowed, you can disagree with me, watch them die of malnutrition. As a Palestinian, Susan, I've got to ask, and I'm sorry about this. How does it feel when one watches one's people being dehumanized, and being othered, being, sort of devalued as human in that way?
First, let me say something about the malnutrition. Everybody in Gaza, without exception, is suffering from malnutrition. The people you're talking about are the ones who starved to death, and that to reach that point actually requires many, many, many months of severe malnutrition. So just to be clear, nobody in Gaza has received adequate nutrition, and it has severely stunted development, especially in children. And that will be a legacy that's going to stay with us for years. And we all now understand the way that intergenerational trauma is transmitted, and the way that you can, by destroying one generation, you can destroy a society for many generations to come. And I think that is this deliberate malnutrition, the deliberate withholding of food, is so insidious. And I'll tell you just a brief story. One of my friends was telling me the other day, she is completely despondent and bewildered and unable to figure out her next move. But she told me that her daughter, whom I love dearly, she's 8 years old, asked her mother if there was chocolate in heaven. And her mom said, there is. Anything we want in heaven is available in heaven. And her daughter is like, we should just stay and get martyred. I mean, in this, that's, anyway, that's and the world, the thing is, the world, and this goes to your question about the total dehumanization and denigration, the world would never allow this if it were happening to anybody else. And I think we all know that. Certainly not if it was happening to Israelis or Ukrainians or anyone else who that Europe likes.
This is it. What is it? I've got to ask, and it might seem like an already, like a foregone answer, but one has to really explore. What is it? What is it that the world has to hate so much about the Palestinians? The Palestinians were not responsible for the Holocaust. So why has Israel been allowed to continue in this way with impunity, to continue to kill, maim, dehumanize, and dispossess Palestinians, they subjugate over and over and over and over again? Well, like in Nigeria, we'll say, what is it now? What is it?
No, that's a really good question. And this didn't just happen in a vacuum. This is decades of deliberate dehumanization at all levels of Western society, of which Zionists exert an inordinate amount of control and influence in the United States across all sectors of society. In particular, the media and Hollywood and publishing. If you look at Hollywood movies and television series, the depiction of Arabs and Palestinians in particular have always been dehumanizing. And this was accelerated when Zionists got the United States to fight their war in Iraq, and so it moved from just Hollywood, from film and television and publishing, it moved on to video games, whereby anybody wearing the kufiya, Arabs who look like me, who dress like me, who wear Palestinian garb, are immediately, nothing more than bugs that should be eliminated. And this has been an intentional campaign that has been highly funded, and should not be discounted. The younger generation that has access to information that bypasses the traditional gatekeepers of knowledge, whether it's film publishing or news media. This younger generation is far more sophisticated because they have greater access to information, and they realize that they've been lied to, that their parents have been lied to, that the world has been lied to, and so they, according to surveys, this generation is far more critical of Israel and far more sympathetic to Palestinians because they can see, and they are more than previous generations, more intellectually sophisticated, I have to say, in that they're not as easily manipulated because they grew up on in ways that in different ways than our generation grew up. I think I'm much older than you, but nonetheless, at least with my generation, where you had like 2 television channels and a couple of radio stations, and that's how you got your news. And if you wanted anything else, you really had to dig. So, yeah.
Indeed. Talk to us about the history, and I'll tell you what I mean by the history. The historic Palestine was pluralistic, it was multi-religion, it was multicultural, it was multi-everything. And indeed, that all of that was before Israel was created in 1947. Talk to us about that, because I've often said to people, you have to remember that in the Arab world, and it's a little bit like that in the north of Nigeria, Islam is both a culture and a religion. So Christians would cover their heads. It doesn't mean they're Muslim, right? And, in Arab world, Allah is just God. It doesn't necessarily mean you're Muslim. Talk to us about that historic Palestine. And the food. Oh gosh, the food, yeah. The food. I've tasted some, so yes, forgive me.
Yeah, so I mean, Palestine has an extraordinary ancient and fabled history. It's literally the place at the crossroads of multiple continents. It's at the crossroads of Africa, Asia, and Europe. And historically, in ancient times, it was central in trade routes between these 3 continents. It is the birthplace of religions, and it has been just a fabled place, and over time, and it was also a very welcoming place, which is why it's so multi-religious and multi-ethnic and even multi-linguistic. So, for example, during the Armenian genocide, there was a huge influx of Armenians into Palestine, in particular into Jerusalem, and Palestinians were very welcoming. Muslim Palestinians, Christian Palestinians, Jewish Palestinians were very welcoming, and they had their own quarter in Jerusalem even, but they integrated into the society, right? They became Armenian Palestinians. They spoke Armenian, they spoke Arabic. There were a lot of pilgrims who came from especially Eastern African countries like Ethiopia and Eritrea, and even pilgrims from Sudan who would stop in Palestine on their way wherever they were going and settled there. There's even in Gaza, there's a community that was originally from Uganda from hundreds of years ago, and so they established themselves, but everybody integrated into the society and everybody spoke the language. There was a Moroccan quarter in Jerusalem, right? That was it was predominantly people who hundreds of years ago had come from Morocco. They were Palestinian, right? But they retained that sort of Moroccan aura. And it was great. Everybody lived together, and it was truly a pluralistic society. My family originally came from a village called Deir el-Hawa, which is where my name comes from, Abulhawa, which was west of Jerusalem. And that village dates back, I think, to the 3rd century. And then one of my ancestors moved from that village to East Jerusalem and settled and created, the new village of Tur.
Right.
But So we all have ancient roots in that land. I mean, whether we started out as nomadic, whether we were Jews who converted to Christianity, whether we were Christians who converted to Islam and vice versa, whether we were pilgrims who came from African nations or anywhere else, whether we were Moroccans who migrated over for whatever reasons, or Armenians, we were Palestinian and we were united in a culture, and it was organic, right? Nobody has this sort of Zionist narrative is like this fairy tale, right? We were kicked out 3,000 years ago and now we're all returning. It is so tidy. It is so ahistoric. Nobody has ever had such a history because history is messy. Societies are formed organically. They're formed through, especially a place like Palestine, through wars and rape and settlement and everybody it's a society that evolves organically over millennia, and they were united in a cultural heritage that was deeply interwoven with the land, with the trees, with whether it was in the clothes we wear. I mean, I'm sure it's like this for every indigenous society around the world.
Absolutely.
Who we are, our food comes from what we can gather from the soil. Our dress comes from how we need to exist with the weather, with the sun, with the rain, etc., with the colors around us. All of these things, everything that we are, comes from ultimately the soil, the land, and the environment that we're in. And this is just something that Zionists didn't have, right? They did not have that connection. It was a colonial project from the very beginning. And they needed, in the very beginning, they were very explicit about what they were doing. I mean, they had the it was called the Jewish Colonization Agency, right? They were very clear that they were colonizers. But that was in a time when colonization was fashionable, right? It was normal to be a colonizer, to be a supremacist, and to look down on backward native people. And but now, because the times have shifted, they have started promulgating this total ahistoric fairy tale that somehow makes us the interlopers and them indigenous. I mean, I will give them credit for being for infiltrating people's imagination to such an extent. Yeah.
Indeed. Yeah. As they say, the victor gets to write or rewrite the history and the truth. One of the things that a lot of my listeners will not know is the Nigerian connection. Indeed, Fatima Banawi, who was part of FAT. I need you to tell them about that because they won't know about her. They won't know that her father fought in the 1936 Palestinian revolt. I'll leave you to tell the story better than I can.
Yeah, Fatma al-Barnawi was actually, she was the first female martyr in Palestine in the resistance. She is a beloved she's a beloved figure. Her father, as you said, was killed in the 1936 Arab revolt against the British. It's a beloved, patriotic, and esteemed family, and they still live in Palestine. They're still, the Barnawis are still there, and yes, they are originally from Nigeria.
You see, we bring you the best history and we join the dots because, again, much as I'm making this a statement, I would like you to extend it for us, Susan, is why what's happening in Gaza matters. Why it matters for every single one of us, in particular, if you are from the global south, why you should be concerned and why you should rise up and speak against what's going on in Gaza.
Well, let's just start with the moral and human argument. I know that's not always so convincing, but it should be. It is. We should never become numb or accustomed to watching a wholesale slaughter of a people day in and day out for 2 years, and the deliberate starvation of an entire society. I think that ultimately erodes our sense of collective morality, and it erodes what it means to be human in the world, and it denigrates our collective and individual personhood. To imagine that we can watch in high definition what we're seeing. One can make the argument that sometimes conflicts that are largely hidden from view can become abstracted. But when it is so in view, when it is being recorded and broadcast, and we watch it and then we scroll on, I think it destroys something in us to be silent. So beyond this basic human morality question or argument, there is the larger context of a geopolitical reality that is basically using Gaza. Gaza is an experiment of empire, basically. It is the most macabre experiment of empire. It is to see what we can do to people, what we can make the world watch and be quiet about. Because it's not going to stop with Gaza. If these powers succeed in their aims to destroy Palestinian society and take their place, as they're planning to do, as they have been explicit about, to colonize, to take their homes, to take their land, push them out, kill them, whatever. If they succeed in this, if they are never held accountable, it will not stop there. Gaza, I think Pedro Gustav, of the president of Colombia, said it. He said Gaza is the rich and the powerful of the world are showing us what they can do. Gaza is a rehearsal for the future. That's what he said. And he's absolutely right. How our future unfolds as a race, as the human race, is going to hinge on what happens in Gaza. It is not an exaggeration to say that, and this is most acutely true for the global South, because these Western powers, this group of, they're not just Western powers, it's this sort of global transnational elite group of elites of mega wealthy who never seem to have enough, want our resources. They want our gold, they want our oil, they want our minerals, and they will move from one to another. And if they are able to successfully, in broad daylight, in high definition, exterminate a people without any accountability, it will spell decades of unfettered imperial plunder of this planet, which will be like nothing we have ever seen before, with AI and technologies we never imagined before. Empire has committed crimes that are difficult to fathom, whether it was in the extermination of Indigenous Americans or Aboriginal Australians, the multitude of colonial crimes across Africa, plundering Africa for everything she has, the severance of limbs in Congo, and just, I mean, the genocides of the Namakwa and the Herero. I mean, it's, it goes on, but their ability to execute unbelievable violence is very different now, and it will be far greater in the future. And it's not just violence on populations, it's violence on the land, on wildlife, on the environment, on this on everything, and everything that makes life beautiful. It is it's just shocking that this group of elite people in the world have been able to manipulate the majority of humanity in such a way that robs them of everything, of material, of their material world, of their spiritual world, of their cultural world, their familial world, and even their imagination.
Yeah,
It's just, it bodes horribly for the entire world. What happens in Gaza will not remain in Gaza.
indeed. When the unfathomable is being live streamed and
Yep.
everybody seems to be asleep. Let's talk about literature as a writer. And of course, when you talk about storytelling, you've often said, storytelling preserves memories against erasure. Then we think of the Palestinian Gazan journalists, 270 of them who have been assassinated. And then you have the Western journalists who are still speaking of them as if they're not real journalists. Yeah. How does that feel? I mean, what do you have to say to them? I saw Mehdi Hassan say in Wembley just 2 days ago at a concert where he said, you cannot bomb away the truth, right? And I thought that was so powerful. But yet you have Western journalists, the vast majority of them, who are still continuing to deny the truth. What's your message to them, especially as a writer? How do writers claim that back? Yeah, we're almost done. They're starting to call. I'll give you a minute to answer that.
Yeah, I mean, it's been extraordinary to watch the complicity of Western media. I mean, it's like they're not even trying to hide it anymore. And even when you dig, you sort of dig into do these investigations and realize that all these people at the top are somehow like Mossad agents. I think there was the expose on the guy who runs the Middle East desk at the BBC was actually a former Mossad chief or something. And then they
And then you have Jonathan at Sky News. It goes on.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
So many, it's breathtaking, like
Yeah.
how, I mean, you're like 0.2% of the world population. How are you in all these positions of extraordinary power over what the world gets to see and hear, and how information is interpreted, but yet it's a reality. And now, for example, the Ellison family, which is a hugely Zionist family that fundraises for a foreign army for Israel's military, is now buying CBS and is probably going to own TikTok. And they have said that their main goal is to root out anti-Semitism, which basically is a euphemism for silencing Palestinian voices and silencing any criticism of Israel. And purportedly they want to hire a woman by the name of Bari Weiss, who has been this rabid Zionist in the United States, to be their either the president of CBS or the editor in chief. So these are ways that Zionist infiltration of Western media basically gets to shape the narrative. Not to mention the existing, sort of inherent racism that doesn't see Black and brown journalists as real journalists, right? If there's not a white journalist or a Western journalist there to confirm something, then we must be lying.
Yeah.
Right? While they will believe what Israel says, even though Israel has been caught red-handed lying repeatedly. They have been caught lying, and yet Western media will just parrot whatever they say as if it's truth.
Indeed.
It is truly breathtaking, but like I said, I think this newer generation is actually waking up, and that's one of the things that they have woken up to, is the fact that the media has been lying.
You can all call now. Sorry, I couldn't answer your calls because I know you were calling 0201 277 0993. 0201 female line is 465 7190. I'm coming now. Make it short, sharp, and succinct. Hello.
Hello?
Yes, good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yes.
Badamasi on the line.
Go ahead, Pastor Badamasi.
I want to ask your guest there. What she's been saying is true. But in the early 1900s, the world see the Jews as inferior. Now, are they trying to make the Palestinians look inferior to the world, like they are substituted?
So are they trying to? Yeah. Okay, I see what you mean. Yes. Are they trying to do to the Palestinians what they did to the Jews?
The Palestinians will look the way they looked in those days.
Thank you.
That's my question.
Thank you. Hold on to that question, Susan. I'll come back to you. The lines are going. The question was, it was the world that committed all the pogroms against the Jews. Are the Jews now trying to do the same to the Palestinians? I'll be with you in a minute. Hello. Hello.
Good afternoon, Ireti.
Good afternoon.
Yeah.
I need you to speak up, please.
Godman, yeah.
Go ahead, Godman. What's your question? Very quickly, please. Okay, we don't have time.
She's a writer.
Yes, Susan is a writer.
You heard the news in Taliban that they've removed the female writers. They removed their books from the library and all that. The dehumanization of women with Taliban, Hezbollah, Hamas, or a coalition with Hamas.
Sorry, say that again. The Taliban. Hold on. I'm not hearing you. The Taliban is in coalition with Hamas. Is that what you said?
They have the same ideology.
They have the same ideology?
Yes.
Right, okay.
So, and these dehumanizing women.
They dehumanize women, right. Okay, quickly.
Yes.
Okay, what's your question?
So my question, she's a writer, because Israel will not...
I need you to quickly ask your question. We don't have time.
The women are free. They have their rights intact. So what's she doing to see that? Because if we allow all...
No, right. I have to cut you off because I keep saying quickly. We don't have time. I've literally got 5 minutes left. Susan, that's an extraordinary call. I think you might want to answer that first. What he's saying is you have the Taliban, who is the same as Hamas and Hezbollah. They don't like women to be educated. And Israel is a society that's free for women to be educated. Over to you. I'll give you 30 seconds.
So I have to ask. I mean, I would have to ask, like, what made him think that? Because surely I doubt that he knows any. I doubt he has any real knowledge of this. So where did he get that information? In fact, this is part of the Israeli Hasbara, the Israeli propaganda that has been promulgated all over the world. But the fact is, in fact, Hamas and the Taliban have no connection whatsoever. And in fact, they are completely different and, in fact, oppositional forces. But the way that Zionist Hasbara has manipulated imagination is to lump this all Muslims into this barbaric sort of framework that hates women and that doesn't educate women. I assure you, nobody in my family or in my world or in the Palestinian society hates me. They don't hate me for not wearing hijab. I am not uneducated or whatever. And you know, I would encourage people to believe your eyes when you see Palestinian society in the fullness of its beauty and its culture and its heritage. You know, the world, at least in the Western world, likes to paint Africa as this backward place, this depleted. Like, if you ask most Americans, their imagination of Africa is this wasteland with where everybody's hungry and everybody's skinny, or where there's all gangs and places, right? This is an intentional propaganda machine that functions for a specific political aim, and it is complete. It's just lies upon lies.
Well, if I may add to what you said, because the lines are still going, is that up until October 7th, and I know this for a fact, Gaza was in the top 5 most educated place in the world, and Gaza was run by Hamas. So just it's true. Yeah. Just kind of balance that. They have one of the highest. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, they have one of the highest
literature rates. Yes.
PhDs and master's degrees per capita in the world. See, you have to look at the facts instead of what has been planted in your imagination that you cannot really identify any basis for other than what the Western media and Hollywood have actually been telling you. And one more thing regarding the Taliban. The Taliban is actually a CIA creation, and so is ISIS. These are both CIA creations, and this is not, again, a matter of opinion. This is literally declassified materials, or rather leaked materials that were leaked through WikiLeaks primarily. But these are ideologies that are literally created, funded, armed, and trained by the CIA.
Indeed. Yeah. And again, if I may just say, higher literary rate than Nigeria. That was Gaza, indeed the Palestinian society. Just the truth, people. Just the truth. You don't have to like it. Hello, very quickly. Hello. We don't have the time. Okay, call back. Yes, I have a question. If you guys are not calling, I've got 2 minutes left. I have a question for you, Susan. And, they're calling. 1 second. Make it short, sharp, and very quickly. Hello.
Yes, it's okay.
Yeah, very quickly. Short.
Hospitals, universities, they are now being bombed with a new extended attack by Israel. What does that say about the future of Palestinians?
Okay, thank you. That's a good one. So, Titi Lokwe, who is a regular contributor to this show, said hospitals, university, everywhere is being bombed. What does that say for the future of Palestine? And indeed, if I may extend to that to my final question, because we now have a minute left, they're telling me in my ears, is that what is your hope? What do you see? When do you see the line where this will end? What do you see for Palestine, for Gaza especially? I mean, UNGA next week. I didn't even get to ask you that question. Do you have any hope in it?
I mean, first of all, the schools, the hospitals, all the infrastructure of life has been deliberately bombed. And this has been, once again, I mean, this is this intense colonial jealousy, frankly. They cannot bear that Palestinians have been able to create, to live, to thrive, to write, to be educated, even under the most barbaric sieges and limitations that Israel has imposed on them, including regular bombing, which they called mowing grass. And so, yes, they have taken out the infrastructure of life to ensure that, and not just the infrastructure itself, but also all of the backbone of society, the teachers, the writers, the artists, the journalists, the doctors, the people who can actually renew society, re-educate society, and restore and heal the society. They have systematically taken them out to ensure that we will be dismantled and obliterated, and so they can take our place.
Okay.
So that's the purpose of all that.
UNGA next week, in short, in one sentence, what's your expectations?
I don't know. It's hard to know what to expect, but what I hope for is that they will work on the Uniting for Peace resolution. I think, the UK and France, they're trying to say they're going to recognize the Palestinian state. I think this is a distraction because they don't want to vote on a Uniting for Peace resolution, which would allow the world, it would give a legal mandate for countries in the global south in particular to basically unite in providing a protection force for Palestinians to ensure that aid gets through to them and that they are protected.
Susan, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your story, the history of your people with us, and for being so generous. And we send solidarity. That's all we can do.
EcoBank Design and Build begins. The excitement is palpable as players in the Nigerian build and design space look forward to an amazing variety of Nigerian creativity in design, build and construction.
The theme this year is How We Build, How We Live, and that aptly captures the expectations of the many discerning visitors. Attendance, by the way, is free.
EcoBank Design and Build 2025 is intentionally curated to showcase the very best people, ideas, and innovations that inspire us to rethink how we live and build.
A major
99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens.